South American countries are often the first places that come to mind when thinking of population density and modest lifestyles. For this reason, chaos and crime rates are high in these regions. However, this illegal behavior does not apply to Uruguay, because this country has a very small population among South American countries and is therefore the most known address for peaceful people. Football has become an indispensable activity for the men of the country, and even world-famous footballers such as Edinson Cavani, Diego Forlan, and Fernando Muslera have come out of this country. Located on the southern side of South America, this unique destination also stands out with its crystal-clear beaches. Uruguay may seem small in terms of area, but it covers a vast 176,000 square kilometers. Moreover, while some South Asian countries have large populations in their small areas, Uruguay is home to only 3.5 million people. This means that if you like quiet, calm, and vacation, this is the country for you. Because it is not possible to come across crowded squares and streets in Uruguay, Bangladesh, for example, has a surface area of 148,000 square kilometers, but interestingly manages to accommodate 169 million people. Uruguay, on the other hand, takes the opposite approach. It claims that small populations living in large areas lead a happier life. And it is true. The country's name, on the other hand, means River of Painted Birds, derived from the ancient language of the South American Indians. Uruguay is also known as the Switzerland of South America. This is because despite the economic problems and income inequality in many countries in the continent, it manages to maintain a very stable economy. For this reason, income inequality among locals does not reach noticeable levels. For example, the country places great value on its workers who work 8 hours a day. In fact, Uruguay was the first country to enact and legalize the 8-hour working day in 1915. This great step towards the protection of workers' rights is very pleasing to many people, and it is also very pleasing for those who will immigrate to the country. Uruguay, on the other hand, is ahead of many other countries in granting women the right to vote and be elected. This was an important factor that led to women becoming active in politics and benefiting the country. Uruguay is also known for its liberal mindset. For example, same-sex marriage is completely legal in the country, and as of December 2013, people are allowed to use cannabis for recreational purposes. There are no opposing views or pressure on this issue. In addition, there is no religious education in any of the country's schools. The capital, Montevideo, is literally the heart and political center of the country. On the other hand, it is also a very important center as a tourism and trade port city. Since Uruguay is a South American country, its commercial exchanges with other countries are carried out by sea transportation. Montevideo has a population of about 1.5 million people, and more than half of the country's population resides here. This unique city in the south of the country is very close to Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. With a ferry, for example, you can reach both other port cities and Buenos Aires in an average of 3 hours. Uruguay can be a unique paradise to live a peaceful life, meet an extremely sexy woman, and make very close friends. Because everyone living in this country is very open-minded, civilized, warm, and friendly. For example, you might be lost because you are visiting the country for the first time. If you ask someone from Uruguay for help, you can see how friendly and smiling they are even though they have never met you before. They will do their best to help you and talk and chat with you. At the same time, if you are polite and courteous, they will also take serious steps to build a serious relationship with you. Therefore, never hesitate to meet and communicate with Uruguayan people. Meanwhile, if you want to travel to Uruguay, you may have some problems. For example, there is no land route to the country from Europe. So, it is not possible to go by car or any other land transportation. Besides, due to the long distance between other continents, airfares are quite high. On the other hand, since the number of visitors to Uruguay is not very high, flights are usually connecting. This can cause you to waste a day wasting time at airports and on airplanes. But don't get upset right away, because Uruguay also has a positive side. For example, unless you come from a country with negative diplomatic relations, you can visit Uruguay without a visa for 1 year and enter and exit as many times as you wish. Uruguay is also known as the land of the legendary cowboys called gauchos. They are even referred to by many as the South American cowboys. These cowboys prefer to live a life away from the modern world, usually in wetlands and forests. If you love this culture, I highly recommend you to take a road trip deep into the country, where you can meet cowboys riding horses and get a closer look at their ranch life. By the way, the official language of the country is Spanish, but you can also find Portuguese spoken in the areas close to the Brazilian border. In fact, if you visit Uruguay, you may have some difficulties with this language, because the middle-aged and elderly population usually speak Spanish and Portuguese. Apart from these, it is very rare to come across speakers of other languages. If you ask why the country does not have its own language, I would say that it was subjected to colonization for many years. Portugal and Spain were stationed on Uruguayan territory for a long time after they came under British rule. Later on, England followed suit. But immediately after World War II, all these countries withdrew from Uruguay. The country therefore embarked on a 70-year process of renewal, following the example of Switzerland. This unique country has always been a safe haven for tourism and has an extensive trade network as far as China. One of the smallest countries in South America, Uruguay exports some of the most delicious wool and beef in the world. The country is also very lucky to have gold deposits. In other words, Uruguay has very valuable riches both above and below ground. But all this praise may now give way to bewilderment. Because in Uruguay, despite all this wealth, the minimum wage as of 2024 is about 20,000 Uruguayan pesos, about $510. Despite the country's prosperity, the average income does not exceed $800 to $900, leaving Uruguay far behind European countries. So, what is daily life like in Uruguay? When you start walking around the country, you can often see people dancing the tango on almost every street due to the influence of Latin culture. On the other hand, the buildings in the city center reflect the classical Portuguese and Spanish architecture in its simplest form, adding a modern and historical atmosphere to the city. If you want to travel around the city, I can say that public transportation systems are highly developed. Uruguay is also a country of animal husbandry and delicious meat. When people go to a cafe or restaurant, they mostly like to eat grilled steaks. On the other hand, there are about 13 million cattle in the country, which is almost 5 times the country's population. Uruguay is truly a country of freedoms. For example, gambling is legal in the country and you can visit any casino you want. Also, you can go out on the street with your camera and record anywhere you want to immortalize your memories. No one will object to this. As the situation in the country is generally positive, incidents such as theft and robbery are extremely rare. In other words, you are unlikely to be robbed while walking the streets or shopping. Of course, this arouses great interest in tourists coming to the country. The cost of living in the country is considerably higher than in other South American countries. For example, if you want to eat a hamburger in a not-so-fancy restaurant, you may have to pay about 300 Uruguayan pesos. This is equivalent to approximately $8. It is even claimed that the price of water in most establishments is $3. As a result, you need to spend an average of $15 for each meal. In addition, if you want to drink coffee in places like Starbucks, you have to pay $4 for an Americano or latte. In conclusion, I can easily state the following. Uruguay is expensive and not a country where everyone can live comfortably. But if you have enough money, I can say that it is a vacation paradise. In fact, if you visit Argentina or Portugal, I highly recommend you to visit Uruguay. If you look carefully at the faces of Uruguayans, you can see that everyone has a calm and very mature demeanor. They are mature because people are having to deal with a bad economy. They are calm because despite such an atmosphere, the crime rate in the country is very low. In Montevideo, the capital, you can see that the beaches and parks are very crowded. But if you look more carefully, you can observe that the people walking around here are mostly filming with cameras. This is because it is usually tourists from abroad who make up the crowd. On the other hand, Montevideo stands out with its extremely lively nightlife. You can see the friendliness, openness, and extreme grooming of Latin American people in almost every environment you visit. If you want to have a good friendship or a good relationship, you can get in touch with people in such lively environments provided by various organizations, because these people will never react negatively when you try to talk to them, provided, of course, that you are polite and courteous. In conclusion, I can say that Uruguay is an expensive place to live, a unique destination for safety, human rights, and vacation. That's all I have to say for now. See you in the next documentary. Goodbye.